The NFL has always shown that they have no problem playing dirty. This company, this business does not always play as clean as what you think they may. Any conspiracy out there is not off the table when it comes to the kind of business that the NFL is. They blackball Colin Kaepernick after he kneeled for the national anthem. They outed John Gruden, linking personal emails, revealing him using derogatory and inflammatory language when initially they were using those emails to get rid of Dan Snyder, but instead they used those emails to get rid of John Gruden because Roger Goodell and a few owners had a grudge against John Gruden, and they used the Dan Snyder investigation as an opportunity to get John Gruden out of the league. So if the NFL was willing to get rid of John Gruden by dirty means, which is why they now are losing in the lawsuit that he has filed against them, why do you think that they can't be using dirty tactics to hold back Deion Sanders' sons from having success in the NFL? Shedeur Sanders and Shilo Sanders both had very rough endings to what looked like very promising preseasons. Shedeur Sanders, in his first preseason game against the Carolina Panthers, he looked all world. He missed the next preseason game with the injury, and then he returned in his final preseason game, and Shedeur Sanders didn't look good. He looked worse than Dillon Gabriel, but he wasn't afforded the same situation to be evaluated equally as Dillon Gabriel. Dillon Gabriel was playing with a much better offensive line. Shedeur Sanders played with the offensive line that all of the entirety of it got cut after the game. The receivers weren't good. The play calling wasn't as good for Shedeur as what it was for Dillon Gabriel, in the sense of allowing Shedeur an opportunity to showcase his abilities. He was pressured on the majority of his dropbacks. Every time he went back to pass, it was a guy in his face. Shedeur Sanders, though, the same issues that he had at Colorado that were concerns coming into the league were fully on display in the final week of the preseason. He still holds the ball too long. He doesn't step up in clean pockets. He drops back into pressure. These are things that Shedeur Sanders didn't clean up coming out of Colorado, and now they're starting to look very ugly in the NFL. And when Shedeur Sanders gets his opportunity, it doesn't matter if it's with him not having fair conditions or the right conditions, no matter what. In Shedeur Sanders' situation, you have to be able to dominate whatever situation you're in when you get your name called to go out there and prove what you can do. The NFL, you can't really control anything if you are Deion Sanders or any of his sons, because the NFL has the final say. And you can decide not to watch this league if you don't like how the NFL has treated the Sanders family, and that's perfectly understandable. But there are a bunch of people who are still going to watch this sport. And you have a family with sons of a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest of all time, who not only want to live up to him and his legacy, but they want to surpass his legacy. And in order to fulfill their dreams, they have to play in the NFL, and they have to be able to overcome what's being thrown their way. All-time greats always prevail, no matter the obstacle. There's nowhere that Shedeur Sanders can go. Shedeur Sanders, if he was to ask for a trade, the same 31 teams that passed on him in the draft would be the same ones passing on him again if he was available in the trade. Shedeur Sanders, there's a lot of unwanted publicity and attention that comes with him as your backup quarterback. If you already have a proven quarterback, if you're the Bengals and you have Joe Burrow, why would you trade for Shedeur Sanders? And then, the moment Joe Burrow plays bad, you have a bunch of toxic publicity in your locker room. That's what makes it so hard for Shedeur Sanders to have any better of a situation than what he currently is in with the Browns. When this season goes wrong as expected for the Browns, and they're 1-10 going into week 12, they're going to have no choice but to start Shedeur Sanders because the fans aren't going to want to see Kenny Pickett or Dillon Gabriel. They're going to want to see Shedeur Sanders. And with nothing left to play for at that point, the only way the Browns can still keep fans engaged and they can give people a reason to buy merch and tune in and attend these Browns games is by throwing out Shedeur Sanders, because everybody wants to see Shedeur Sanders. The Browns haven't gone about this quarterback situation properly. They've used politics. Shedeur has been the best quarterback throughout camp and the majority of the preseason. One bad preseason out and doesn't define the body of work that he has put on display throughout the preseason and throughout training camp. The Browns use politics to determine this quarterback battle. So if they use politics to determine their current depth chart entering week 1, they'll use the same politics again when their season is over. They have nothing to play for and they're struggling to keep fans engaged. The fans are going to say, we want Shedeur. The owner is going to give the fans what they want because the NFL is still a business. It's driven by money. It's driven by how many eyeballs you can attach to yourself. And the Browns right now have the biggest attention magnet in the NFL. The Browns owner is going to want to see that, because he's going to care about the money if you're not able to make it to the playoffs, or at least still be in the race to make it to the playoffs. The reason why the Browns drafted Shedeur Sanders, despite not giving him a fair opportunity, was for clicks. They drafted Shedeur Sanders for clickbait. They wanted to build up their personal brands. They wanted to build up their team following, because nobody gave two flying F's about the Browns until they drafted Shedeur Sanders. This franchise has been dead and irrelevant for the entirety of my lifetime. The only reason why we see Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland is because the NFL forced it to happen. At this point, if the NFL was holding grudges against John Gruden, they'll be holding grudges, conspiring against Deion Sanders' sons as well. Shilo Sanders was provoked and getting cut by the Buccaneers. A guy was pulling on his face mask, provoking him. Shilo Sanders came back with a 1-2 combo, and he was up on out of there. This morning, just comes out that he's released by the Buccaneers. In life it goes, it doesn't matter who starts it. It matters who gets caught finishing it. And Shilo Sanders got caught finishing it. And when you get caught doing it, there's nothing else that you can do. Shilo Sanders, we know that he had a uphill battle to make it on the Buccaneers final roster, and he didn't really do himself any favors deciding to get into a UFC match with the Buffalo Bills tight end. This was not a good weekend for Deion Sanders' sons. And right now, it just looks like all the odds are against them to succeed in the NFL, and we won't get any more answers about their futures until 2-3 months from now.